Well, we'll get started here. You might notice that Rachel is not here. So I'm in the hot seat. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna fake it. And if I go astray, please keep me on the path. But we will commence with the July 18th, 2022 Planning Board. And this is a hybrid meeting, so we do have folks, or we may not have folks, I don't know, on virtual world, but if we do, we will make sure we type in when we need to on other comment or what have you. So with that, can we rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Maureen, would you be so kind as to roll call
Rick Meinking,
here?
Roger Beely,
Here.
Karen Chu,
Here.
Jennifer Ladd, here, and Chad Reed.
Here.
So we do have a quorum, given that Rick, Harry and Rachel are gone, Chad and Karen, you're voting tonight on any matters that require a vote. So with that, we need to approve the minutes from the June 27th, 2022 meeting. I think it was all included in your packet. Entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
All right, motion by Roger. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thanks, Chad. Any discussion? Seeing none, would you take another roll call vote this time, Doreen?
Rick Meinking,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Karen Chu,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
and Chad Reed.
Yes.
The next item is a consent item. So we've seen this and we're just gonna make sure the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted here. This is a consent item for Sunchin's Realty LLC requests a site plan amendment review for the conversion of a temporary parking area to permanent status and landscaping revisions at Portland Volvo. This property is further identified as 9 US Route 1, Assessor's Map U50, Lot 18. Eric, can you give us a
Sure,
Please.
thank you. So the project, as Rick mentioned, is for some parking conversion with landscaping, some fencing to better align the project with some abutting residential properties. This would also involve minimizing any lighting and visual impacts. At the June 6th meeting, the board agreed to move this to a consent item. So just as a quick reminder, that was generally for some stormwater calculations to be reviewed at the staff level, and then have staff also work with the applicant on the process for its DEP permit. Since the June 6th meeting, staff has been satisfied that those stormwater calculations have been provided. And the DEP permit, we've been informed, will likely be in hand by the end of the month. So with that, and one small comment from our peer civil engineering review team at Woodard and Curran, we've prepared a draft motion, which includes revision on the plan set for an outlet stabilization and provision of the main DEP amendment permit. So with that, I would turn it back over to the board. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And do we have anybody here representing Portland Volvo that would like to speak? Okay. This is also subject to public comment. So any members of the public wish to comment? In virtual world, are we? Nobody there, so I'll declare public comment closed. And we'll turn it over to the members. At this point, we've seen everything and it was just a matter of having some work done with staff to get some of the loose ends tied up. And it appears that that happened, although the DEP permit is not in hand yet. It is anticipated to arrive. So I'll just open it up to anybody that has any Any questions for the applicant who is here? But otherwise, we can move forward. Very good. Then I move to approve the project titled Portland Volvo proposed by, and I'm sorry, I'm going to spell the name because I'm going to ruin it. It's SONNENSCHEIN Realty LLC as depicted on the plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 6/15/22 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the proposed site plan amendment includes resurfacing of an existing temporary parking area to provide 24 new permanent parking spaces for the site. Minor alterations to the previously approved landscape islands include demolition of an existing curb located north of the building and replacing it with a painted island. The planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review, the zoning ordinance requirements for site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Conditions: prior to the start of construction, the applicant shall address the need for the additional stabilization at the end of the 12-inch outlet pipe from the soil filter as outlined by the Woodward Kern memo dated 7/12/22. This should be reviewed by the planning department. B, provide a main department DEP permit to the town upon receipt. It is the board's understanding that this approval will be gained within approximately 30 days. If the permit is not supplied to the town by August 16th, 2022, this shall be considered a violation. The planning board may extend this deadline for good cause. Number 2, prior to the start of construction and pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, the site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second from Roger. Would you like to take a roll vote?
Rick King,
Yes.
Roger Bailey,
Yes.
Karen Troop,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
and Chad Reed.
Yes.
Thank you, folks. And with that, any questions from the applicant? All set? All right, thank you. Next agenda is LaPlante Electric request a site plan amendment review for a commercial business located at 717 US Route 1, Assessors Map, Lot 201. Eric?
Thank you. So LaPlante Electric is currently in front of the board for a site plan amendment. The board has worked with them previously at a previous meeting to go over some outdoor storage, screening, updating the dumpster enclosures, as well as revegetation of yard areas that were previously left unvegetated. Staff's main concern has been the parking and loading areas, the parking and loading activity that's occurred in the side of Queens Drive. Since this is a residential street, which the TVC zoning district specifies, shall be used for landscaping and pedestrian areas. Our recommendation to the board is to enhance that landscaping as a barrier in this location and condition any approval accordingly. A motion of approval has been provided for the board's consideration with this and provision of a fire lane as requested by the fire department included. And then with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you, Eric. And for the applicant? Greetings.
Greetings, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Jim Fisher with Northeast Civil Solutions. I have the privilege of being here this evening with Sean LaPlante from LaPlante Electric. Eric basically summed it up very neatly and concisely. I'll just expand on that just slightly. And then please feel free to comment or ask any questions. Essentially, as he mentioned, there are a few facets here that brings Mr. LaPlante brings us here this evening. The first, I'll start at the top of the actual plan, the top meaning the opposite direction from Route 1. There are a couple of dumpsters that are over there. They are about 15 the area was about 15 years old. It was never really encapsulated as it should be or surrounded by the fences as it should be. So what we're proposing is to essentially keep it in the same area, but move it slightly to the right as you're looking at this. And then fully enclose it with the stockade style fence and a gate. That will leave plenty of room for the actual vehicle that comes up to be able to collect the solid waste and be able to dump it over the top of the vehicle, et cetera, without any impediment. And then be able to leave down Queens Drive or back out to Route 1. So the dumpster will be no issues as far as that's concerned. Kind of working our way down toward Route 1, as Eric had mentioned, we do not have plans at this moment as far as utilizing that triangular piece of property that's on the other side of Queens Drive. It's currently a vacant lot right now. It's just grassed. Sean the LaPlante Electric was using that when they first purchased the property just a couple of years ago for parking. They were using it up until the point where they were told not to. Sean asked us if we could assist him toward this end by coming to the board regarding these items. And first thing we told him was you can't park there anymore. So as far as his commercial vehicles are concerned, he has moved those off-site. So he is no longer having those commercial vehicles parked overnight on that site, anywhere on the site actually, and certainly not on that grassed area. That is to be revegetated until such time as we come to the board again within just a couple of months, showing that there will be a cover over that area as is required for open parking to be able to be in that particular triangular section. That will then obviously will come here with us having done stormwater and design for a parking area with the covers. That's really not on the agenda tonight. Just wanted to bring it up to let you know that the commercial vehicles are not and will not be parking in that area for either parking or loading or unloading until we come back to the board. Then there was one of the real reasons why we came here, the principal reasons was or is the outdoor storage. Sean had put a couple of storage pads that were not covered as they're supposed to be on the Queens Drive portion of the building. And we are proposing to move those to the back of the building. There's also an open storage area or uncovered storage area that is fenced in the back right-hand corner of the building that we're discussing. So we're going to have these three storage areas, one of which exists, two of which are behind the building, other can be new. And those will simply be covered as is required by ordinance. They are not required to be completely enclosed, although there will be fences around them as far as safety and security is concerned. One of the things that one of the other reasons we were here, as Eric mentioned, is the landscaping. And we propose, as you can see in your packets, that there is a row of coniferous trees so that they will not lose all their leaves and not provide much of a camouflage as people coming down Queens Drive, and we are extending those all the way down almost to Route 1. There's actually a couple of very nicely sized trees that are down right near the corner, so we don't want to cut those down to simply replace them, but we will be adding quite a number. Basically, we're looking at 10 to a dozen of these trees that will be planted along that area to separate the right-of-way of Queens Drive from the actual building or from that portion of the building. And then lastly, pursuant to one of the department heads' comments just a few weeks ago was the fire chief. He had asked that there be a sign either placed on a post or on the front of the building on the Route 1 side, saying basically fire, no parking, fire access, and then to literally write on or print on the pavement in that same area, fire lane, so that there are there's no propensity to actually park any vehicles there. This is the asphalted area right in front of the building. That is to be a fire lane only. And we certainly have no problem with any of these. So basically what's before you this evening is just approval of the landscaping, the information of which is on your plans, the covered storage and the dumpster. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to address them as you see fit. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. This item is also up for public comment. If there's anybody wishing to make a public comment, please keep it to about 3 minutes. I'll give you a general tap. Doesn't look like it's overwhelming, so I'm not going to be too strict, but welcome. Can you state your name and where you live?
I'm Pat Sullivan. I live at 6 Queens Drive. And I didn't see they changed the map. They're now putting the 10 trees going towards Route 1, but nothing where they actually unload and load their trucks. Nothing to block it all the way to Route 1. But anyway, I had something written that I wanted to read anyway. So LaPlante has changed the sights and sound of Queens Drive. They removed grass and bushes and replaced them with concrete slabs, dumpsters, fenced storage areas, gravel park, to park, load and unload their trucks, and a truck washing area, because where they don't have any trees, that's where they're washing their trucks, on the corner where it's kind of like the front of the building, and then it goes around the corner somewhat. So on the plans, in 2008 and 2020, they had a fence post kind of fence there to block, like a cut through, because they are cutting through that area also. And that's all gravel before that little parking area. But anyway, so a massive amount of daily trucks line both sides of the street, loading and unloading and beeping up the backing, you know, the beeping sound of backing up trucks on Queens Drive. The 10 by 24 storage area, it has a broken gate they built, shouldn't be approved, that one right in the back next to Queens Drive. Because it only will encourage them to continue to park on the street or where they're parking to unload their trucks on Queens Drive. They want to roof it, and the building has an unusual roof line. It kind of slants. And so that will only make it worse. And plus it goes out 10 feet. So when the roof is going to come down, it's going to come out 10 feet. But if you look at the roof line of the building, it's kind of slanted. So I don't think that should be approved. I think it should go. Then when they move the dumpsters to the back, they have all kinds of equipment hanging behind the fence area right now. Will that all be removed and put somewhere else? And will it take, there's another dumpster in the back. Will that take the place, those two that they're moving back there? Will that other one that's behind a broken enclosure with a gate that's been off for years, will that be taking the place of that one? And let's see. So let's see, there needs to be something to block the cut through from the front. Like I said, there used to be a post rail fence there. So on their plan before, they had 6 pines that stopped at the corner of the building. I guess they added 6 more. But on Town and Village, doesn't it say like shaded trees? These are going to be pines. I don't know if that makes a difference. So there needs to be more landscaping all the way to Route 1 to prevent them from loading and unloading on Queens Drive. Loading and unloading their trucks need to be done in the parking lot, not on Queens Drive. And we want the side and the back of the building brought back up to village character as it once was. And one more note, as of right now, they're storing a trailer in the back next to that dumpster with junk on it. There's 2 unregistered vehicles out front, and Shaker has an unregistered truck out front also, and he parks a red sports car that he leaves there all the time. So I guess, you know, I have nothing else more to say, but
Okay, well,
There-
time's up anyway.
that's
So
okay.
that worked out well.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody online, you want to bring him in or her? I'm not sure.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
My name is Eric Lewis. I live at 9 Queens Drive. As LaPlante has moved their vehicles out of the empty lot on the west side of their building, their solution has been to park up and down the street on Queens Drive. As to, in some photos that I have sent in, their parking lots are full with employees that work in the store, while their employees that work outside as contractors don't have a place to park and load and unload their vehicles. I would just like the town to make sure that LaPlante is using their lots and not the access to Queens Drive for this. It has become expanded since they've purchased another company in the last year. And as of right now, if they were to put plants in, it wouldn't make a difference. As I drive out to my street, all I see is trucks lined up down the street. So I would just like to make sure the town is going to do something in regards to making sure the loading and unloading is put on their property and not onto the access that we have on Queens Drive. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Eric. Anybody else? All right, public comment is closed. And before I turn it over to the board, do you just want to address anything that was made in terms of the parking lot and the activity that goes on, as well as the dumpster?
Sure. Again, starting with the dumpster, because that's where we started. First of all, it'll be it's new dumpsters, it'll be a new enclosure, and it'll be larger than what's there right now. So there shouldn't be any issues as far as anything that's old or archaic or falling apart. It'll be new as far as the approval. As soon as the board approves that, then he'll take steps to make sure that that's in play, or they will, but the two owners of the condominiums. As far as the landscaping is concerned, we did, pursuant to staff notes, we did add additional trees going down toward Route 1. There are a couple of big trees right in the corner. We don't want to cut them down, and we don't have to, just to replant them. But the trees will extend down that way, which will essentially act as a natural as well as artificial barrier, as you can see, between the backside of the property all the way down toward Route 1. So that will basically affect a natural barrier, and from an aesthetic standpoint, anybody coming down Queens Drive will essentially see not so much the back of this building, but are going to have a screened canopy of these coniferous trees. If the town would like to be able to have some of them intermixed with deciduous trees, that's fine. Just keeping in mind, we made them coniferous because 6 months out of the year, there are no leaves on those trees. And if the intention really is just to be able to screen that area, then we figured coniferous trees would be better. But we're certainly open to suggestion as far as that's concerned. If you'd like us to change that or mix them, we'd certainly be amenable to do that. As far as the parking is concerned, there is a fairly sizable parking lot that he can use, and there's no objection to being able to do that. One of the biggest issues was the parking that was across the street. And again, we're no longer doing that until we will, which will be late. We'll be here again with the board later this year, just in a few months. And other than that, all of those vehicles are stored off-site. So anybody who is actually going to pick up a vehicle is going typically now is going to be leaving their personal vehicle where that is and bringing in the chop truck, basically, as it were, to go to wherever their sites are on a daily basis. And as far as the cut-through area, we'd be absolutely happy to do that. The cut-through area, meaning that coming into the entrance, the main principal entrance off of Route 1, then across the face of the building and out across the side. We'd be happy, Sean would be very happy to be able to put anything from boulders to a fence or whatever there, because principally, as he describes it, there tends to be this propensity for people who are whether they live on Queens Drive or not, they access Queens Drive, and instead of coming down to make the right-hand turn, there is upon occasion somebody that will actually make this unsignalized turn into the actual site itself, cut across the front of the building, and then right out onto Queens Drive. And we would prefer, if the board has no issue with this, and I presume they don't, or the town doesn't have an issue with it, and I presume they don't, we'd be happy to either fence that, put boulders there, whatever, because it's more of a nuisance than anything else. So plus there's going to be trees there now. So nobody planted trees, so nobody's really going to be able to use that for any type of pass-through traffic. So again, toward that end, we're looking at the covered storage. Oh, and by the way, there was a comment, I think Ms. Green, or sorry, I didn't get your name. Yeah. Pat was mentioning about the covered storage areas. The building does have a couple of roof lines that are different. One's coming one way, one's going the other way. These covered storage areas are not part of the enclosed building per se. They're literally just outdoor storage. But the ordinance does require them to, or any outdoor storage areas to be covered. So these will literally be just shed roofs that are coming off of the back of the building and will extend to the extent that these, the size of these outdoor storage areas, one's 8 by 10, I think 8 by 10 by 18, and then the one in the corner, and they will all have those shed roofs on them. So that meets the letter of the ordinance toward that end. And those are the principal items that brought us here to begin with. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right, I'll turn it over to the members of the board. We've seen this before. I think the applicant has given us some updated information and has been working with staff to take care of some of those issues. But I'll open it up for anybody that has any questions or comments, concerns.
Say something. I mean, we have residents here who are speaking tonight, and so I think I want to clarify, we're not talking about parking tonight. So my understanding is by passing this, then residents can say, okay, well, you can't park on the street anymore, right? And it sounds like they're going to talk about parking totally separately.
That other area will be brought back to the board if
So
they want to
it's like,
do
well, we
parking.
hear the complaints, it's actually not what we're talking tonight. I have lots of questions about parking. It sounds like tonight is not the night. It's not, and so what I would say to what we're hearing and what we're seeing tonight is I think the plant has responded to like all the feedback and pretty much done everything that we've asked, and it seems fine to me.
All right. Thanks, Karen. Roger?
Regarding parking though. The caller brought up parking on Queens Drive. And I recall seeing some photographs that probably was one of the residents sent in, where they did have vehicles parked alongside Queens Drive. So how are we gonna handle that? Can we do anything about that?
So I think the intent of not only the landscaping, but in the draft motion, staff has included a condition that no parking or loading or unloading of vehicles shall occur on the Queens Drive side of things.
Okay.
And that draft motion also includes a statement about no parking of vehicles on the property on the other side of Queens Drive until the time comes when a site plan would be procured.
Okay.
So that was the way we kind of approached it, but if the board wants to ask for additional fencing or extend the landscaping down towards Route 1, that's certainly up to the board, but that's sort of how we've handled it up to this point.
Let me ask Jim, how's the business gonna, when they're loading up for supplies in the morning and everything? Where are they gonna do this on this layout that's here?
They were typically doing it on Queens Drive. There's a side door there that leads right into the warehouse sector, not the warehouse, but the supply section of the building. If we're not, with the door will still be compliant, obviously, but if we're not allowed to be able to park there to load, then there is a parking lot that's around the building on the other side.
Is right, but the paved area doesn't go really up close to the building.
Well, for parking and unloading and unloading,
That'd be okay right there?
we can, get it as close as we could possibly get it.
Okay.
Obviously, inclement weather is a bit of a challenge, especially during the winter time, but that's the pension of the board. And
Another photo I recall seeing was pertaining to these storage areas in the back that are currently there. And they seem pretty shabby looking to me, the way they were. I mean, they weren't even for storage, they weren't that attractive. Are there any plans to, fix those up and make them look more presentable and everything?
actually going further than that, those are the ones that are there now are actually going to be removed.
Oh, okay. Good.
And then the new storage areas that are in the back and on the one that's in the back corner there will be fenced and then have the hip roof cover on it, or shed roof cover on it.
Okay. And I guess the last question was, the lady right here brought up the washing vehicles. Where will that be done? Any idea? If they're not being done down there in the left corner of the property?
Haven't really discussed washing of
Okay,
vehicles. It's the
alright.
first time it came up, but
Okay.
it's certainly within the condominium unit itself.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm glad to see they're extending, and I agree with you on the trees, the type of trees, because it's more of a buffer than the alternative. I think I'm all set up and everything.
Thanks, Roger. Chad or Jen? Jen?
I have another question. So, I understand, from this recent discussion where you will not be doing loading operations, which is from Queens Drive. And I think what you're saying is, so if I'm following along here, where vehicles were previously pulling up along Queens Drive, roughly where you're gonna be planting the trees, is that right? Because there's a door on that side of the building. And so I think what you're saying now is that vehicles will come into that, the paved area in the front of the building in order to load,
Or at the very, or at the very back.
or at the back, okay. And then, but we just talked about a fire lane also,
Mhm.
right?
That's already there.
Already there, and so so they're not gonna be loading in and out of the fire lane?
I mean, if an individual comes up and, parks there temporarily, they'll be asked to move. So I can't guarantee that nobody's going to be there, but it's a designated fire lane. And given that, it can't be blocked.
Okay. And then, so this just sort of gets to like my larger question about, how those new and renewed, I guess I'll say, storage areas in the back, any material or supplies that are being stored there, are those being funneled through the building and then loaded into vehicles, or are they carried out and around the outside of the building?
Most of that material is not the kind that would prove to be an incentive to walk away at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's mostly big material, which means it doesn't really have to go through the building.
Okay.
There might be some on occasion, but typically it'd be right outside of the fenced area and then over the parking area where it would be
My
loaded on.
question has more to do with just the logistics and the operations around that and how people would get on a day-to-day basis. Not security is sort of like a different situation, I think, but just on a day-to-day basis, like, is this something that should be connected to the front parking lot with a plowable or impervious surface that allows that operation to work better that way? Or because I'm not super familiar with what's being stored out there and then how that's being loaded, but we're all sort of creatures of habit, right? And so like whatever is the easiest way and closest way for a vehicle to get to those storage areas is probably what's going to happen. And so I'm just curious if the site plan may benefit from sort of a path or a walkway from the parking area in the front to these areas if it is larger equipment that needs to be carried back and forth. Do you know what I mean?
I do, exactly. And there may be, this is sort of we want to put the cart before the horse. Let's see where the path goes actually, and then which should be determined within a few weeks. And then toward that end, to be able to help things throughout the winter as well, there may be like a stone dust pathway or a
Yeah.
mulch pathway or something to that effect. Otherwise, it would just be a pathway.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about how you can make the desired loading area also the easiest loading area. That's
I
all.
appreciate that. Yeah.
And in response to some of these comments, and also in order to sort of redirect that activity after your landscaping is planted, which I think is great. And I think it's a terrific addition to extend additional trees down towards Route 1. Can you confirm what the rough height of those plantings will be?
Typically, when you start on any project with plantings of that caliber, you generally go with like 6 to 8 foot saplings. If you try to do anything bigger than that, they tend to take a lot longer to assimilate. So,
But what's
six-
your end goal? Are you planting trees that are going to stay 8 feet? Or are you planting like 30 foot?
oh no, these would grow. These would be like pines that would typically go relatively quick growing because we want to be able to make this as quickly as possible. They would probably be anywhere from like 20 to 30 footers, and they would be trimmed appropriately.
Okay, great. I think that'll really help fill out that area. And my only other comment on that is just to be mindful of the overhead wire that spans through that area. And it doesn't run parallel with where you're planting. So I think with careful sighting, you should be able to just,
It's an electrical company.
oh gosh, yeah, right. They don't want to cut down their new trees. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Chad?
I guess my comments have more to do with materials selection and the actual enclosure. The drawing, well, the language indicates a proposed stockade fence as the enclosure.
Yes.
The visual points to a different kind of fence.
The stockade fence, you mean around the dumpster location or around the storage facilities?
They appear to conflict. As
Well-
far as the visual of the elevation of the house, the building doesn't show the pickets.
The fence that's around, the proposed to go around the storage facilities is typically the white style of vinyl fence that we typically see very popular around the area. The dumpster enclosure typically has to be either chain link or a stockade style fence with a gate on it. And that's what that will be. That's what it is now.
Right.
It'll just be a new one.
So the language just on the drawings needs to be cleaned.
Yes.
And then as far as the roof, what are the materials for the roof here?
We were right now, the quick answer to the question is metal roofs, grayscaled so that they don't stand out. It's not going to be a bright orange roof or anything like that. We had proposed originally to do a metal roof on the corner, back corner of the building, and then asphalt over the two right on the back of the building. But the contractor has recommended, given, hey, we live in Maine, so metal roofs would be great, and these will be short, small metal roofs as you're used to seeing on a lot of houses in the area.
That's all the question there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. And just for a sense from the board, there was a mention about boulders or some way to prevent the cut through, but also the fact that there's going to be landscaping there. Does the board have any preference on whether we want to require the applicant to put boulders or something to block off that cut through?
Just clarify where that would be again.
Yes, it's as you can see, the front fire lane comes to what you're looking at is the left corner of the building, front left corner, and then it continues right around the side of the building. Right basically where the arrow is, or a little more toward Queens Drive, toward the property boundary, as an extension of that row of pines, there would then be, depending on what you'd like to see, either like a split rail fence or a series of boulders. We don't want to cut off any sight lines. We want to be able to see through well enough, but also be able to discourage any people from literally driving through that area, which is why we thought a couple of well-placed boulders, nothing you can move by hand. This would be something that's, once you put it in place, it's staying there, just to dissuade anybody from going through there. But it allows full sight distances all the way around.
Also keep from plowing right through to
Exactly.
Queens. So my preference, from my standpoint, I like the idea of maybe a couple of boulders there just to keep the snow plow truck from going all the way through and maybe risking damaging the trees or what have you. Anybody have a problem with that? So can we, go ahead.
Can I just clarify, because it looks like the pavement goes right up to your property line?
Yes.
I guess I would want to make sure the boulders are placed on the property, which means that might limit their pavement or their use of that pavement, that's all. I wouldn't want a boulder in our right of way, I guess. I'm getting it.
Well, it's not really a right of way.
Well, in the future, Queens Drive,
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to keep it from being used as a,
correct.
Right. I think
I'm
we
just
could,
curious about the placement and your use of that pavement, yeah.
yeah, and we appreciate that comment. We want to be able to continue to use that pavement to a certain extent, but as Angela points out, the corner of that pavement actually the back left-hand corner, actually right where the cursor is,
right on the line.
actually touches the line. So we can put the boulders just inside that line. And we're not talking Volkswagen size. I mean, this
Right.
is, something like the size of a chair that just, they're going to come out on the losing end if they try to drive through that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of the discussions that I've had with Angela, and she's informed me of this, is that we like to keep any barriers or anything off the paved drive. I think it's 7 feet, right?
Yeah, the travel way.
travel
So
way.
that's Queens Drive, which I think you're plenty
Yep.
far from
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
Okay. So without objections, can we put that on the conditions?
Yeah, so potentially something to the effect of a barrier at the southern corner of the site to prevent access on this side or something to the effect of that.
All right, you want to say that again?
Hmm. Barriers. At
How
the
about-
southern end of the building?
How about secure the and the right of way, I guess, or some way of just setting up a barrier to avoid any access from Route 1 through the parking lot and onto Queens Drive.
So to make that in form of a condition, maybe the applicant shall install barrier, and then what did you have? The applicant shall install a barrier at the end of the southernmost paved surface of the
Fine.
property to eliminate vehicle access directly to Queens Drive. And that way we can do a field determination
Sure.
like this, like that. It could be split rail, it could be boulders, and we can determine that in the field
Yeah,
if
that's
the
fine.
board is comfortable
Yeah,
with
just put
staff
the
doing
condition
that. Yeah.
as
So we know the intent.
approved by the planning department.
Okay.
We all set with that? Then I have a motion, once you're done, because I will never remember what Angela just said.
Do you want me to read it before I give it to you?
Well, you're gonna either embarrass yourself because you said something you didn't want to say, or.
So right now I have the applicant shall install a barrier at the southern end of the property to prevent access to the site via Queens Drive. This shall be approved by the planning department.
That's good. Can I borrow that?
Yep.
Thank you. Then I move to approve the project titled Second Condo Amendment proposed by Sean LaPlante as depicted on plan set prepared by Northeast Civil Solutions dated 5/27/22 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the proposed site plan amendment includes 2 dumpster enclosures, screened and covered storage areas, and additional landscaping along Queens Drive at the existing LaPlante Electric business. The planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review and zoning ordinance requirements for site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Conditions. The applicant shall A, revise plan sets and narrative materials to address comments in the staff memo dated 6/27/22. This shall be reviewed by the planning department. Parking and vehicle loading and unloading for the business shall only be done in areas identified as parking on the approved plan. Such activity along Queens Drive is prohibited, and such activity on the condominium association owned property access Queens Drive is prohibited until a site plan is approved for that site. Outdoor storage, including the keeping of vehicles in the same place for more than 24 hours, is prohibited. Number 3, any areas not designated for vehicle parking or other approved uses shall be revegetated and returned to previous site conditions. And 4, a fire lane shall be established via pavement markings and signage between units 1 and 2, similar to the 9/15/08 approved site plan. This shall be reviewed by the fire department. Number 5, the applicant shall install a barrier at the southern end of the property to prevent access to the site via Queens Drive. This shall be approved by the planning department. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Karen. Doreen, would you do a roll call?
Chad Reed,
Yes.
Rick Monking,
Yes.
Karen Chu,
Yes.
Roger Bailey,
Yes.
and Jennifer Ladd.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for working with the staff on getting those things ironed out. We just lost somebody, didn't we? We just lost somebody. Here, you want your. She coming back? All right. Hold on a second.
Read my handwriting.
Hmm. Better than mine. All right, well, this won't have a vote, but we'll keep moving forward. Number 7 on the agenda is Miser Investment LLC requests a site plan review for a drive-through coffee establishment and retail commercial building at 451 Payne Road, assessors map R37 lot 14A. Eric?
Thank you. So Miser Investments, what most folks might know as Martin's, is requesting a site plan amendment review to convert a current parking area to a 5,600 square foot structure. The structure would be composed of 2 storefronts and a coffee establishment. This is the second time the site plan has been in front of the planning board. And staff has remaining questions on conditions of stormwater facilities on site and the status of the traffic movement permit currently under review by Maine DOT. The TMP staff has been in conversations with DOT and is of the understanding that some off-site improvements might be required as part of that permitting process. And we would recommend that any potential off-site improvements be reviewed by the board as part of a future site plan review. With that, I will turn it back over to the board.
Thanks, Eric. And for the applicant?
Good evening, members of the board and staff. My name is Henry Hess. I'm a landscape architect with Sebago Technics. With me this evening is Mr. Nathan Mangin, as well from Miser Investments. So I believe it's been a little while since you guys saw the project. We were on the agenda in July, in June. We've just due to time, we're now here today in front of you, but love to provide you an update with where we are and a few items for the board as well. Since the board did last review this project, or last see the project in front of them, a number of changes have happened to the site plan, many of which are also involved with discussions with DOT as well as traffic solutions. Some of those items include response to comments for looking at raised crosswalks along the drive-through area to alert vehicles to passing pedestrians. If I could just highlight that for you right here. And this region here. Additionally, pedestrian counts as well as vehicle counts were assessed by traffic engineers. And there's actually a pedestrian count summary that was included with application materials. The intersection of Spring Street, as well as looking at southbound Spring Street, northbound Spring Street, eastbound on the Martin Site Drive, as well as the Walmart Drive as well. So not only were they looking at high crash locations of vehicles and vehicle counts, but pedestrian counts were done as well. As such, in looking at the data, the overall site plan and the project are proposing a central walkway for pedestrian connection that runs from the Martins up towards what would be the Starbucks and additional tenants there. For any pedestrian traffic, as limited as the counts have shown, but for pedestrian traffic within the site. We've looked at a number of different options for walkways and feel that this one's probably the most efficient for the site, given the limited pedestrian counts coming to the site from the Spring Street area. In the report, you'll find that a majority of pedestrians use the existing sidewalk moving north and south. I will pull that up right here. Moving north and south along this side of Spring Street on an existing sidewalk connection. They also move east and west along Gallery Boulevard. It was found that only, I believe, 2 to 3 pedestrians exited the Walmart site, and not necessarily all of those went over to the Martin site. So in that data, discussions have been had with Traffic Solutions as to potential improvements off-site, as well as around the site for the project. both MDOT and Traffic Solutions agree that no additional pedestrian measures are really required due to the low count at that Spring Street intersection across from the Walmart. They have asked that some blinking stoplights or be added for vehicles approaching or leaving the Martin site. But in terms of rapid flashers or any other pedestrian crossing signals, they're in agreement that they're not required due to the low counts. There was discussion about an additional sidewalk from this crossing at Spring Street here. There's an existing one along this location. Delete some of the highlights here so we can see what we're looking at. There's an existing sidewalk right here along the entrance to Spring Street and the site. There was consideration for a potential sidewalk along the whole drive aisle through here. But given the lack of improvements required and the lack of pedestrians physically flowing from that side, the project did evaluate that and saw that a central corridor for pedestrians where a majority of pedestrians are expected to be coming from and walking to seems to be the most efficient. So in creating that walkway, and I'll zoom in again, it is proposed that a raised curb or a raised walkway with curbing be extended throughout the central corridor of the parking lot. The parking spaces along there are currently 20 feet long. They would be reduced to 18. The drive aisles on either side are also 25, and a waiver would be proposed for a reduction in drive aisle to 24. So that would give you the 5-foot walkway across the center there without really too much other, with a limited impact of work. There was some grading that is shown on the rendering in front of you that does show kind of the extent of which some saw cutting and some shimming would have to happen to make sure that water would still flow to the existing catch basins on site. A lot of that water is already flowing to those catch basins. It's just making sure that it gets there now that we've put a sidewalk in the way. So we're slightly redirecting some of that water. In addition to evaluating some of the other improvements that may be requested for the offsite, another reason we're looking to create this central corridor along the center of the parking space there is, again, with the limited requests, and again with the counts that being what they were for pedestrian crossings at that Walmart intersection and the current existing use of that Spring Street sidewalk moving north and south. It seemed wise to direct pedestrians to what would be an upgraded adaptive signal at Spring Street and Gallery and a safe crossing with crosswalks and adaptive signals there. So you have a signalized crossing at Gallery and Spring that would also lead them into the site as well. So they could cross from the Walmart, enter down along the pedestrian system and through the central corridor. We believe the majority of pedestrian traffic will be coming from this Martin's area to begin with. Given the pass-by nature of a lot of the drive-through businesses. But I guess that's one item that we've been discussing with Traffic Solutions as well as MDOT and trying to find a little bit of balance there for sidewalks and connectivity, not only for pedestrians in the site, but off the site. In addition to that, the project is proposing an impact fee for the adaptive signals and the upgrades at Spring and Gallery. So the Payne Road corridor is already undergoing some adaptive signal infrastructure upgrades. And as part of this, we'd be proposing that fee for the adaptive signals at Gallery and Spring once those are completed. The traffic study did find that minimal trips are being sent to this intersection due to the project, but however, due to the Downs project and upgrading the adaptive signals along Payne Road, MDOT did consider and request that the Spring Street intersection as well be upgraded to match the adaptive signals at this time. So as such, we acknowledge that the proposal to provide an impact fee for signal upgrades is in lieu of impacts of the Payne Road, and it replaces the traffic impact fee zones in the Scarborough ordinance. And that's something we would look to the board to weigh in on. Currently, Traffic Solutions does believe there's some merit to it. But it's something that is still currently under a final discussion. The adaptive upgrades along Payne Road currently are scheduled for 2024. And that's another reason we'd be looking for an in lieu fee in that regard, as we wouldn't want the construction and building of the adaptive signals to actually hold up any occupancy permits for the project. So with that, I would certainly look to turn it back over to the board. I did forget to mention one item on there. Also included on the last submission was a potential signage layout for the intersections to direct traffic around the site. What was not included was a small exhibit here that actually highlighted those locations. And in front of you now, or I believe it could be, there you go. Just highlights those locations that were included in the site plan, as well as shows a potential sample directional signage. So again, sorry, with that, I will turn it over to the board and we'll look for your feedback and discussion.
Thanks, Henry. This item is up for public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment on this? Anybody in virtual land? Seeing none, public comment is closed. And before I turn it over to the board members, I think not having the traffic, the TPM and all of the associated items that is included with that kind of put us at a standstill with that. However, I think it's appropriate that we give feedback to the applicant on their proposed changes to conductivity and traffic. And so I'm probably going to turn over to Jen first, and she's the guru.
Quick, Rick, I'm sorry, there's, my packet from last month had a public comment from a resident that was in it. But the new packet from this month did not.
Yes, so since this is a tabled application, I think that would be the public comment that would be applicable to this meeting. I don't know if the board wants to read that or acknowledge it, but we did receive that one comment.
I apologize, I thought there was one and I do have it.
Yep,
I
yeah.
just didn't know if we should.
Do you want to read it?
acknowledge I think we should, because I think a resident spoke out and sometimes this is the only time residents have the platform to speak. So I don't know. if you
I'm
want-
giving you the go
Oh,
ahead
you
to
want me
read
to
it.
read it
Sure,
first?
you brought it up. I feel that was a good catch, and go ahead.
Sure, we're gonna open the public hearing back up, just so I can read a comment that we received. So it says, hello, my name is Kim McNamara, and I live at 20 Spring Street in Scarborough. My home is next to a wet area and catchment pond behind and to the side of Martin's. I have attached photos of my yard before and after a hard rain storm. The continuous creep of water from the wet area towards my property has rendered my garden area unusable at this point, and when flooding does occur, there is a lot of standing water that blocks the pathway to my shed. Last summer, the grass on the Martin side of my home was killed, and I had to treat it with several bags of costly bacteria-killing grass additive. There are bags of open salt in an area on the side entrance to Martin's next to my property that are possibly seeping into the water that may have killed my grass. I am very concerned that this water runoff will eventually reach my foundation. I would like to ask for your help in modifying or reinforcing the drainage below those catchment ponds. The property owner behind me has, at the rear of his property, a drain which can collect more water, but that property is elevated well above the water table, which has continuously increased. I am not sure where the extra water is actually coming from. I hope the pictures help to describe my situation. Ultimately, I would like to know that any future development or alteration of surface area upstream from my home is done with my situation in mind. The only recourse I have is to increase the elevation on my property, but then face a lack of slope for a runoff away from my home. Thank you for your consideration. And it says Kim, and then Kim included photos that I believe everyone did review in preparation for the meeting last month and is familiar with.
Yeah, and I think it relates to the stormwater and the functionality and the maintenance of that. Angela, you want to bring up anything?
Yeah, we had checked, I know one of the responses, and maybe Henry wants to speak to that. was mentioned about the ditch line along Spring Street. And so Public Works has verified that they have cleaned and that is functioning. So that's why the last comments from staff were to not only get an full inspection of the pond, but to verify the outlet control structure or the outlet of that pond between that pond and the ditch line on Spring Street is also functioning adequately. So that was just requesting more information.
Sure. Yeah, and I'd be happy. We actually, that has been conducted, and those inspections by a MTP certified inspector has been completed. I believe some maintenance agreements are working to be put in place. The BMPs themselves were found to be functioning appropriately. And the drainage paths from the outlet control structure were also found to be clear within the property.
So on your next submission, I would anticipate you providing those maintenance agreements for the maintenance of the stormwater.
Mm-hmm.
That work for you? Okay, go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, what about the salt? This is referring to, I believe, Martin's, right? Martin's building, where they have storage, bulk storage, apparently. Do you know anything about any leakage of salt or anything like that?
I can't speak to a leakage of salt. I know that there is salt on the premise that is covered, I believe, by a water resistant tarp, and so it's always covered. I can't speak to if somebody had walked by when it might have been uncovered momentarily, but I know that the grounds themselves, they do keep it covered.
Is that retail salt being sold there, or?
That's actually a great question. I'd probably look to turn that over to Nathan to, if it's more programmatic, but I believe it's actually salt for the roads.
Good evening. So the salt that they're talking about in question, I'm assuming, because we don't do sales of retail salt and we certainly don't keep it outside, is the plow contractor's bulk salt for salting the parking lot in the winter for ice. And they do keep it in the back near the loading docks. It is covered with tarps most of the time. Obviously, when they're using it and loading up the trucks, they're going to uncover it. And it's very possible that at times the contractor may not place the tarps back in a timely manner, but for the most part, they're supposed to be covered up by tarps.
Thanks. You all set with that, Roger? All right, then I'm just gonna keep opening it up. Everybody, Jen, do you want to go? I know you're fired up.
I just want to clarify that I think what you said was that DOT as an entity suggested that you contribute an in lieu fee for the signal improvements at Spring and Gallery Boulevard. Is that right? Instead of the Payne Road or other impact fees?
Yeah, it was, we've actually put the proposal forth to Traffic Solutions, and I know the discussion's been had. We just haven't, if I had said DOT specifically, I just know that Bill Bray and Traffic Solutions say there's merit to that option.
Yeah, so
I could speak to that a little bit because we've been having conversations with DOT. And one of the things, because understanding the position it puts them in about timing with the downs, I think was really the question. And so DOT and we're working through some language and trying to get the town to be able to provide or be the entity to hold a performance guarantee in place so that we could get the estimate for all offsite, and that we can hold, which is pretty typical for our site plans, that we would hold a performance guarantee in the form of an escrow in order for the entity to be able to get a certificate of occupancy. So it shouldn't hold them up, but then would also leave the town whole to be able to to ensure that then it would get implemented or installed. So that's a pretty typical kind of way. It's not typical, I would say, for DOT to write it in their traffic movement permit, which it looks like they're looking at doing, and then adding an escalator to that, like
okay.
100+%.
Yeah, that was another question.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great. So that timing actually, that's it's good that we have that mechanism coming then, the suggestion.
Thank you for clarifying, Angela.
Yeah, and so I'm assuming with your next submission, I think I read that you have offsite plans, but we don't have them yet. We'll see those next time.
Offsite design plans?
More information.
Yep,
about
absolutely.
offsite.
Absolutely, and that'll be included in the response.
And then I think the only other question I had, and I typically review these electronically and it's telling me the server's unavailable right now, so. Anyway, I could probably check this for myself at a different time, but can you just clarify? The walkway that you're showing to be added through the parking lot there, is that curbed or painted?
That'll be raised, be curbed.
And is it fair to assume that that would also be plowed and maintained through the winter like any other walkways on site?
Correct.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know we've talked a little bit about, there's some challenges in sort of siting a building like this into the back corner here, but the first thing that struck me when I reviewed these plans was it seemed like they were very responsive to a lot of comments that the board had previously. So I think that's certainly encouraging, and I'll look forward to the additional info next time.
Excellent. Thank you.
So just so the board knows, there will be a waiver for that sidewalk. In order for that sidewalk to be constructed, we'll have to shorten the drive or the parking lot length. Right. So we'll see that as a waiver request on the next round. The aisle width, yes.
Mhm.
All right. Anybody else? Go ahead, Roger. You get one more shot.
On the buildings themselves, all the two buildings, are they gonna be all constructed at the same time?
Yeah, it's intended to be one building with demising walls between it, but I believe I can show you some of the renderings here. I believe we've seen a handful of renderings in the past,
Just the
but yet
box going to be built first?
I believe the whole the whole building will be built.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine, okay. I know we've talked about this pedestrian sidewalks and everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to visualize coming out of Walmart, coming out of Walmart's across Spring Street.
Mhm.
Is there a sidewalk there?
There is.
There's sidewalk all the way along the Walmart property line. I believe it's a few feet, maybe 20 or 30 feet past that entrance from Walmart on that side of Spring Street.
On the Walmart side.
On the
of
Walmart
Spring
side.
Street.
Mhm.
Okay, and but does it go, it doesn't go up to Payne Road though, right? It just goes right out of Walmart to Spring Street, and then where's it go? Does it go up to does it go along the Gallery Boulevard up to Payne Road?
I believe so.
Yep. So actually, I do have let me see if I can zoom in on the overall here. The sidewalk currently, if this is the Walmart drive here, the sidewalk does come along this edge. There is a crosswalk here to Spring Street, and there's also a sidewalk that exists all the way up Spring. There's a sidewalk that exists all the way down Gallery, and the sidewalk continues actually down Spring in this direction, and it ends actually at the end of the adjacent property.
Okay, and you're proposing just putting a crosswalk across Spring right there at that intersection?
There's already an existing crosswalk there.
Oh, there is, okay, but.
Yeah,
that's-
what
that's
we're
The main for the sidewalk getting in, okay.
and there is an existing sidewalk today that comes along the entire interior of Spring, hits a crosswalk, and a sidewalk that connects to Martin's and over.
Okay, going up Spring.
Mhm.
Towards Payne, that right there, that little entryway or something,
Yes.
what's gonna happen with that?
Oh, I apologize if I did not mention that. That is, that's currently the right in, right out.
Yeah.
Currently the right out will be closed. Given two reasons, the mitigation of people taking a left out of the right out, as well as the limited amount of traffic that was already coming from it. I believe we counted 2 trips coming out of there, and of those 2, 50% was taking a left. So
So you're gonna eliminate it
Imagine
completely?
that.
pardon me.
Gonna eliminate it completely?
Currently the plan is to eliminate the right out and leave the right in.
Okay. Is that right? That's all right?
Yeah, they're proposing, and that's part of the conversation with DOT is keeping that as a right in. It does a couple things. I think they're seeing that the traffic heading to the Starbucks drive-through is gonna take that first right that they're finding because the entrance for Martin's Walmart and Spring Street is, I believe, a high crash location. If not, it's right near there.
It's closer to a high traffic or a high crash location. correct.
Right, so let's say it's a problematic intersection, so the more we can take out of that
So they want to leave
intersection.
it as a, kind of like a,
So it's gonna be a right in, right out.
Nope, right in only.
Right in only, correct. Yep.
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah,
it
the-
eliminates people having to get to that intersection and turn a right. They've
Mhm.
already taken that right.
Okay.
So you're kind of eliminating that traffic that was heading probably specifically towards Starbucks.
Right. And the right out traffic anyway would have been headed down towards the other intersection.
Right,
So you're actually
towards the
eliminating
corners.
additional traffic coming in conflict with the Spring Street intersection down here.
Thank you.
Certainly.
all set, Roger?
I did want to ask, I recognize there's some more discussion to be had about the in lieu fee, but did I hear there is some level of comfort initially from the board and they'll look to essentially what Traffic Solutions and staff come to?
Well, from our standpoint, we value what our consultants tell us and provide us. And so I'm not gonna preempt what they would say or do in working with the staff. So, I think what you need to do is present what you got, what you want to do, and we'll make that call once we have all that information.
Certainly, as soon as the preliminary cost estimate for what that in lieu fee is available, we'll include that to staff and the board.
Is that all right with you guys?
Yeah, it would just require the board's approval,
Mhm.
like he's saying, in order for them not to pay the in lieu fee. It's whichever way the board would choose to go. I think in this case, because of what's happening on Payne Road, we know very specifically what needs to happen. So we can probably get a very tight estimate on what that dollar amount is rather than the projected,
Mhm.
traffic impact fee, which is based on how many trips are going through Oak Hill or Dunstan, right? It's kind of arbitrary in some respect where this would be really finite. So I think we get closer to what's actually needed and implement it.
Certainly.
Okay. You all right with that?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, good. We want to, happy applicants mean we go through our approval process nicely.
Thank you, Rick.
Any other questions you have for us? Are you all set with what you need to come back to us with?
At the moment, I believe we are. We'll certainly look to come back to you with a little bit more info regarding some of the traffic and the in lieu fees there. But I really appreciate the board's feedback.
Yeah, and the maintenance agreements too, and on that stormwater's pretty
Yep.
important.
We've been working on acquiring those at the moment. They're just not finalized. So when they are, we'll certainly send them your way.
Excellent.
Ask one more. thing.
Sure, go ahead, Angel.
Do you have any idea when the amendment to your site law permit would be expected? Would we see
Mhm.
you not until you have that in hand or?
I would love to say we'd see before then under the guise that we'd conditionally be allowed to get an approval with the condition that the DOT permit would follow. I'm sorry, the MDEP permit would follow.
So you don't have any
As it
technical review comments? yet?
as it is an amendment, there is no statutory time for their review. So we, at this point, don't have any, and that's why we would look to certainly have a condition put on at the time of approvals to allow DEP approval to follow.
Well, we're gonna go by your comfort level on that. How's that? All right, I think we're all set here then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Next item on the agenda is Thayer Development LLC requests a sketch plan review for a 10-lot subdivision on Provident Drive, Assessor's Map R23 Lot 1A. Eric, you want to give us a rundown?
Sure. So Thayer Development is requesting a sketch plan review of a subdivision that would contain 9 lots on Provident Drive. It would extend Provident Drive and include open space to the north. As the board might know, a sketch plan submission can be reviewed at the basic level by the board. And that the board should discuss issues that would be pertinent come a preliminary subdivision application. Staff has flagged some issues on the site, including wetland impacts, required improvements for public roadways, which any roadway serving over 6 lots would be required to meet, as well as stormwater concerns. And with that, I turn it back to the board.
Thank you, Eric. And for the applicant, we have, find your name here.
My name is Craig Sweet with Teradyne Consultants.
Greg, please. Tell us what you want to do.
Sure. Let me share my screen here. This is the existing property. Located at, as Eric mentioned, it's off Provident Drive, map R23 lot 1A. It's about 45 acres in size, the overall property. A few years back, there was an existing house here that was subdivided out on a 2-acre parcel. And the existing Provident Drive extends about 700 feet to that house right now, and that's the only house it's serving. And then the site has, as you can see, large amount of wetlands in this gray area. And slopes, the site generally slopes to the wetlands, and then there is a stream that crosses, which ultimately drains down to Beaver Brook and then down to Dutch River. The property in the past has been used for timber harvesting, and as you can see from the area, there are some areas that have been expanded upon beyond that, and as part of the proposed, we'd be looking to remediate that as well. The applicant is looking to add an additional 1,300 linear feet of roadway to the existing Provident Drive to serve an additional 9 lots on the site. We ran the net residential calculations with the existing lot, which was subdivided in the previous 5 years, which allows for an additional 12 units on the site. Let's see, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, he's looking to propose an additional 9. Lot 1 was originally proposed to kind of be like a multifamily, but we can work with staff on their comments for that. And then we had proposed the additional 2 through 9 to be single family home up to the cul-de-sac. We do have some wetland impacts to get the roadway up to the drier, usable areas of the site, which did include a little bit of wetland areas on some of the lots. Those wetlands that are shown on lots would be bisected by the road, and they would not be part of the contiguous wetland area that would be in the open space subdivision part that's conserved, which would all the wetlands in the conservation area for open space would have that 25-foot buffer as required. And then right as this plan sits, it's roughly 31 acres of open space, including the wetlands on the north here and the south here. And then as part of the proposed plan, we'd be upgrading the roadway to the town standards, the whole length. The lots would be on wells and septics. And that's kind of where we're at right now. It is, as you can see, there's a lot of wetlands on site. Trying to work with that, and it's very preliminary at this point. We've come back with a lot more information as the next submissions. Be happy to work with staff and you guys to see what you like.
That it?
That's it.
All right. This item is up for public comment. Anybody wishing to make a comment in the audience? Anybody on the line? Do we have any letters? Public comment closed. Before I throw this back to the board, this is like, to me, this is a challenge, given the wetlands and the amount of lots you're trying to put in here. It's like putting in a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of the usable land is towards the back of the lot.
Yeah. And that does make it a challenge and, you know, we're here to help, but we also have, you know, some pretty strict, ordinances protecting the wetlands and those kind of things. And, number one, right off the top, have you had a wetland, delineation done within the last 5 years?
We did, we actually were actually in front of the board in 2020, with this, and we had a wetland and, delineation was done then. It has not been updated since then, but this is the most up to date from that survey.
Okay. So does anybody want to offer any comments for the applicant as they're trying to put a round peg in a square hole?
Just procedurally, at this level, do they produce a deed? I'm curious who the current owner is and when they bought it, and that's just a curiosity. History, I guess.
Yeah. I don't have the exact date of when he bought it, but the current owner is Joe Thayer with Thayer Development. Him and his brother had bought it a while back and they were originally going to do every 5 years, do a subdivision. And then since then, they've decided, you know, with the one lot that they have there and then some family complications, he's looking to develop it now, kind of just as a full subdivision. And
All right, Roger, go ahead.
I have a question for Eric on the second bullet. On your comments, staff comments. Does that mean they can't ask for variance on that all one, or is that just?
For grouping the lots in 3 to 4. No, I don't believe that standard can be waived since it's part of the zoning ordinance. And it's actually embedded in the language in the conservation subdivision design. So I would say that the board should be holding them to that.
Okay. So nothing can be done on lot one then, or he would have to sell the property off to somebody separate owner or something like that, or what would happen to that lot?
I guess it would just have to be either the design would need to be reconfigured to incorporate it into the other 8 lots somewhere, or it would have to be eliminated as a lot, just so we can maintain the grouping of lots and then have the separate conservation land. So it would have to either be eliminated or reconfigured into the existing 8. Or the proposed 8, I should say.
Or could be sold, couldn't it be sold off to somebody else as a separate lot?
Well, I think the intent of that that section is to make sure that there's not, you know, it's a conservation subdivision, so it's a smaller lot sizes in exchange for open space.
Okay.
So making sure they're not kind of spread all over the place and the open space can kind of be in one area and the lots can be in another.
On the bullet where you mentioned the infringement upon the you know, the stream that goes through the wetland, the boundaries. Is that infringement because they have to maintain a 30,000 square foot lot? Is that what that is?
So I think, and Angela, feel free to jump in, but at least crossing those wetlands multiple times with a expansion of the roadway would certainly warrant some further review. I think that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, I'm talking about the back lot, the back of the lots.
are you talking about right here?
Oh, where the 75-foot infringes on
Yes,
some of the
yeah,
lots.
Yeah, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 lots.
But what bullet item are you talking about?
Maybe it's the first one. Wait a minute, I'll find it.
I think the first
I didn't
one,
make it up.
the first one had some with the wetland crossings. And then we did try up in this area to limit it, you know, as much as we could to like some of the fingers that come off and keep it away from the actual bigger areas of contiguous wetlands in the site, just to try and get it up there. In our first go around a couple of years ago, we had tried to snake the road on some of the, you know, timber roads that had cut through, but it was just too long to make it through. which that did have, they had a little bit less impacts, but the road would be too long to make it up back to the kind of prime area in the back for homes. So that's kind of, I think I have actually a copy of that at the end of this. I could show you. This was from 2 years ago. We had tried to snake it through that way, but it was about 100 feet. At that time, we were asking for of extra roadway length, which with safety standards, it wasn't allowable.
Angela, it was first bullet. And maybe I'm misreading it, but it's talking about the ordinance does not allow for the encroachment on private property.
Oh, that's the wetlands he was referring to. It looks like lot 4 and is that 5 and 6?
Correct, yeah.
There's wetlands in the middle of those
Oh, that
lots.
notched area
And I
there?
know the board's probably very familiar with seeing other conservation subdivisions where you get weird lot lines because they stay 25 feet away from wetlands because that's the standard and that's the requirement. So so that's where it infringes on, you know, avoidance of those being on a private lot,
Yeah.
because if someone owns that lot, inevitably that will be filled. So it's wetland impact is
Oh.
how that would be considered.
Okay, I thought that was referring to lots 2, 3, and 5 and 6 on the.
Two
back road,
also, yeah, 2 also has it.
Where the buffer, and, you know, is.
You're talking about
Oh,
the
you're
blue-
talking about the back.
Yeah.
You're thinking of a stream.
Yeah.
You're thinking of this blue line on the screen in the back, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, when you first threw that thing up there, I thought maybe you're showing us something in Florida. With all the wetlands. This is a challenging lot. I don't know. I have no other questions at this point.
Okay,
I think we should throw this on Angela's lap.
well, let's run it through and see if we can provide some guidance, because I do agree it's quite a challenge. Anybody else wanna? I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
The 100-foot road frontage, can you achieve that around that cul-de-sac with, in particular, lot 7?
Yeah, we had the,
100 feet?
yeah, we had the 100-foot around there.
Okay, so-
And I can dimension it up more when we resubmit
Okay,
anything.
that's the one question I had. Jen, you want to?
I just had a couple questions. I'm guessing with this amount of wetlands, there isn't a real significant slope on the site from one direction to the other, but if there was, does it head sort of back down towards that stream?
Generally, yeah. It is a little, you know, the drier area in the back is probably the steepest part, but it's not steep slopes by any means. But yeah, generally it all comes down to that stream, which then goes to Beaver Brook and the Nunsens River.
Okay, and so for some of you briefly touched on this with what you said earlier, but I just want to clarify,
Yeah.
was the thought for some of the very small areas of wetland impacts that fall within the lots that are laid out here? Are you envisioning impacting those or filling those, or are those to be protected and buffered?
The envision was to protect it. It wouldn't be part of the buffer is outlined in the ordinance, which would be that 25-foot, which we had plenty on the other ones to meet that requirement as I interpreted it. It wasn't but they would technically not be part of that as they're kind of like cut off fingers of it.
Mhm.
But the intent was to try and work around it as we develop the lots, kind of to
Sure.
keep the wetlands there.
And so as a homeowner there, you'd be inheriting a lot with like technically a small area. of
Correct.
Wetland, okay, yeah. So I know in some other cases before, we've had, maybe not quite like that, but we've had some other projects come in where they're similar to this grouping of lots where they abut a wetland to the back. And so as you move forward with your design, one thing that I always think is helpful is when applicants come with some sort of suggestion or treatment, like
Okay.
some sort of physical, I hesitate to use the word barrier, but like a physical reminder that you shouldn't mow
I understand.
past this
Yeah,
area
I understand what you're
kind
saying.
of thing. And that will be further challenged, obviously, if you have like a small island of wetland
Right.
within someone's lot. So that's kind of why I was just curious how that will shake out with your calculations, but you'll move through that as you go on. And is this layout that we're looking at, I know you submitted 3 different layouts, and it looked as though one of them had a bit more topography information displayed than the other 2. Is this layout and these lot lines, and particularly the road, are you just is this still, we're at sketch plan here, so this is what I'm
Correct.
asking, is this sketch level, or are you depicting a width there wide enough to accommodate any sort of grading or
So-
sidewalk, or like what the full right of way impacts would be?
It's not full right of way impacts for the grading of it. We did put in the road to the standards, the town standards in the right of ways there. But we didn't go through and grade out anything because for some of these, we want to put culverts in, which would increase the roadway grade a little bit kind of thing. We haven't gotten to that extent yet.
Okay, so I was just curious
Yeah.
if we were looking at that already, or if that was going to be coming later. So it
No,
sounds like-
I have it on my mind, and I kind of like looked at it a bit in terms of when I looked at our rough wetland impacts, I took it from the full right of way to kind of give a little buffer kind of in my head for when I do future design of it. But I haven't gone through and done the actual grading of it yet.
Sure, okay. That's all I have for questions.
Thanks, Jen. Chad, anybody else? Go ahead, Karen.
Sure. To take sort of a step back, I'm trying to understand the idea of, what they're applying for is this conservation subdivision design. So under the ordinance, they're allowed to apply for it, but we're saying we have the discretion to say, we can give you, like, you can do these clusters. I guess I'm wondering, it comes specifically where it is. I think, I'm very discouraged to see this. I'm very discouraged to see this type of development here. And so I'm kind of wondering where discretion is. And when you say you're looking for our feedback when it comes to, the purposes of the conservation subdivision design and avoid, if they weren't doing a conservation subdivision, what could they do? Is this it? Is this their only
Go ahead,
option to
Eric.
develop this property?
Essentially, so the ordinance requires that subdivisions in the RF and I think RFM zones go through the conservation subdivision design, and that actually be shown. And I believe the applicant actually did provide a design showing what it would look like with a conventional layout. But part of the requirements are that any land in the RF or R2 district that has 1 or more acre of wetlands, 20% or more of the land is wetlands. It will alter the 4,300 square feet or more of wetland. Basically, any large property out in the RF zone would be subject to these, just with the pure amount of wetlands and geographical features out in that part of town. So that's kind of where this comes from, and it would be required as part of the zoning in the area.
What I'm trying to understand is, one of the primary purposes of the conservation subdivision design is to avoid wetlands fills and alterations into buffer wetlands. Can they do that otherwise? I mean, aren't they dictated by what they can do? And so it sounds like they're just asking for a waiver of everything. And I apologize. I've only been on the board a year. I'm trying to literally understand what this process is right now.
I think what they're trying to do is maximize the number of lots they can get in while still mitigating any effect on wetlands. And because it's the conservation subdevelopment, it's okay to make lots smaller, provided you have the open space remaining. The question is, there is a significant impact on wetlands here, just about on every lot that's there. And so that's the challenge.
And what is our discretion?
Well,
I mean, can we say you can have a 1/4 acre lot, a 1/2 acre lot? I don't.
Well, you'd have to, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. Jessica.
I think what staff has laid out in the memo is the standards. So here are the unwaivable standards. So it's giving them the roadmap to it. So once you put, say, for instance, once you put 25 feet around every wetland, you can have a crossing. So we've managed that. But once you do the 25 feet around all those wetland fingers, what's left? And perhaps it's not 9 lots, perhaps it's 3, 5, 2. I don't know what that is. I guess that's back to the applicant to provide us with, by following the ordinance, how many lots are actually attainable for the characteristics of this lot. And so I think that's what we're seeing is, to Rick's point, maximizing obviously developable lots is the goal for any developer. And I think the role of this board is to manage that expectation based on the standards that they have in front of them, saying, here's how many are actually you're able to get out of this land because of this very specific characteristics of this parcel.
Does that help? That's what I said, putting a square peg in a
Karen,
round hole.
was one of your questions related to this, like the size of the lots they could have?
The size of the lots, but, and maybe I should have done a little more homework before I came here, but I'm reading to avoid filling wetlands. Can they fill wetlands to put a residential lot out there?
They can do a stream crossing by permitting through DEP and the Army Corps.
Yeah.
So stream
I'm trying to,
crossing
I
is
guess,
very,
understand where we came from.
it's almost like threading a needle. For
Yeah.
a stream crossing, you're finding the smallest crossing, the smallest impact, just to get over it in order to, what Craig is saying, to get to a more developable land. They're doing,
We don't
I would
have
say, multiple to try to get to this open. So yes, they can cross at a small area, like you're kind of threading that needle to get across. If there's more land on the other side to get to, that's developable. But to fill for a lot, for a house lot, is not allowed in the ordinance.
Thank you. No, that, now I'm, I think, understanding it a little bit more.
Yeah, and if I could expand it for like, when we looked at this layout, we tried to get back to this area with the least amount of road we could while still getting the most use out of the back portion of the lot over the front portion, which is, as you can see, very tricky. We had come up with a couple of iterations and looked at a whole bunch of stuff. We had looked at possible crossings over here, which just didn't work. And this layout here, after going through multiple different concepts, was we were able to get the 2,000 square foot road length, not exceed it, and still get back and use as much of that back area, which is the least wet area of the site as possible, without, although this area does have a decent amount of open space that would be decent for a lot in the back here, but that's just crossing the stream and the wetlands, and we're trying not to touch the stream at all.
For one lot, I don't think that's
Yeah,
economically feasible.
That, and it's just, I think we could have had a couple lots back here, on paper. But then you'd be crossing the stream with big box culverts, and that's just, we're trying to limit it as much as we can while still providing the best value we can for the client on the lot.
Well, I think what would be helpful if you bring this back would be to kind of give us an idea of what a house, what would it look like with the structure in it?
Sure.
How does it relate to, the wetlands that are in these, and in keeping the buffer on those? What does that mean for a building? Where would it go?
Sure.
It might help us visualize it.
And also the elimination of lot 1.
Yeah, this one here, because of the gap between the two.
Yep.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. That's real tough.
And tightening up just the boundaries where there's infringement.
Yeah, the stuff you mentioned right along the backside of those lots. Yeah. I guess I want to just check in with staff to see if we're missing anything that you want us to pull out of here, so that the applicant can go off on with at least putting the best foot forward and trying to engineer something here.
I think the memo kind of spells out, so if, I think they have like a roadmap to say, here are the, well, here are the hurdles,
Yep.
in other words, that you
Yep.
need to kind of maneuver through, and I guess I would just, I guess to Jen's point earlier is kind of start looking at what are those wetland impacts just from the roadway, because there are some I can see up by
Mhm.
cul-de-sac where you are not technically crossing a wetland, but it would appear that you might be impacting that wetland.
Yeah, there's a
those
little
type
bit
of
of a
things.
finger that it's underneath the roadway right here, so there is something right there, but yeah.
Okay, and just, you know,
Yeah.
knowing where those kind of the greater impact from the roadway might be, because you potentially could be impacting everything within that right of way, that 50-foot right of way.
Correct, yeah. And I broadly done that, taken the right away for what we had submitted here, but we can hone it in a bit more for, get it back to.
Do you have any questions for us?
I think I'm okay. I think I understand what you guys are looking for generally. I know it's gonna be kind of a tricky lot. But I'll work with Angela and Eric, and then before I come back. And
Okay. All right. That's all we can ask for.
I appreciate you guys' time tonight.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It's 8:10. Does anybody need to have a quick break? We're on our, is that a yes? All right. Take 2 seconds. We'll take 5 and then we'll come back and with our last agenda item. So let's see, our next agenda item is Crystal Springs MHP LLC is requesting preliminary subdivision approval for creation of a 27-unit age-restricted retirement community. The property is located on Crystal Lane and further identified as tax map R3, lot 6A. Eric, you want to give us a rundown?
Sure. So as Rick said, Crystal Springs MHP LLC is proposing 27 age-restricted retirement units with traditional stick-built attached garages. We've been working with Crystal Springs the last couple of months to get a plan forward to the board that kind of reflects what the applicant is planning. And initially, our main concerns for the preliminary subdivision revolve around clarifying why the clearing limits are proposed the way they are, lighting and potential turning radii for roadway curves to ensure adequate public safety access, especially for the fire department. And since this is a preliminary subdivision review, the board can elect to vote on it. Yeah, just kind of discussing the main elements and working with the applicant. So with that, I turn it back to the board.
Thanks, Eric. And for the applicant, is this Jason? Welcome.
Jason Haskell with DM Roma Consulting Engineers. Here with me tonight is Will Boyle with Crystal Spring Estates Development. So as Eric just said, we're looking at 27 single-family age-restricted buildings. They are going to be manufactured homes with the stick-built garages. So the two on top are kind of some other buildings in the area that were built previously. They are actually built on a kind of a 2-foot seat wall. So it actually looks like a full foundation on a building. You don't have the skirting around it like you would typically see out of a mobile home or manufactured home. Typically looks like a single family ranch on the property. This will be the redevelopment of the existing Crystal Springs mobile home park. It was constructed back prior to 1970 and consisted of 30 mobile home units. Crystal Lane, David Drive, and Matthews Way. Switch that back. And over the years, it's just gone into disrepair and just has been outdated. In January 2018, Crystal Springs MHP LLC purchased the property and has made several improvements, including repaving the majority of Crystal Lane at the entrance to a width of 20 feet, replaced the community water pump station and filtration system to bring it up to current drinking water standards. They removed a bunch of the uninhabited and mobile homes in disrepair to clean up the area some. And then also in 2021, in working with the town's codes department and planning department, was able to remove the mobile home units along David Drive and constructed 8 of the 27 units that you see here, units 1 through 4 and units 6 through 9. The units from this initial phase were constructed over existing mobile home pads, driveways, and the land disturbance was limited to less than an acre. So based on the current zoning, it's considered a mobile home park. I know that there's been a lot of language changes that have been proposed to the town council and have yet to be read in at this point. So at this point, it's still a mobile home park, which is a special exception in the RF zone, and currently does not allow for the density as being proposed, but in discussions with codes and planning, since it's an existing mobile home park and historically has had 30 dwelling units on it, the existing non-conforming density of the park has been, I guess, essentially grandfathered into this lot. The infrastructure construction will include the reconstruction of David Drive the new loop road on David Drive, and also the reconstruction of the existing Matthews Way, making an actual connection between David Drive and Matthews Way and Crystal Springs, making a complete loop around the park. In addition to the public safety improvements of making the loop, the applicant has also installed a 10,000-gallon fire cistern in coordination with the fire department at the intersection of Crystal Lane and David Drive. The site is served by the community well infrastructure, the private on-site septic and underground electric services. In August of 2021, we received engineered subsurface wastewater disposal permit for a 24-unit phase. This was the initial, the original plan was to go with 24 units instead of the 27. So this was, the system is planned to be built this fall, but at the same time, we still need to get the amended permit from DHHS on the extra 3 units that will be connected into this. That is in the process right now, and as soon as we get approval from them, we'll pass that along. This phase of the project, the 27 units, required a stormwater permit, as it was over 1 acre of impervious area. As part of this, we are going to install 3 under drain filter basins throughout the site to provide the stormwater treatment required, and also the flooding standard to meet the town's flooding standards. Also, as part of the project, there was approximately 14,700 square feet of wetland impact associated with the project, requiring the DEP Tier 1 wetland fill permit and the Army Corps of Engineers main general permit. This 14,000 number was significantly less than what we originally proposed to the Army Corps, and working with them and with DEP, we were able to pare it down to the 14,000 square feet by shrinking some of the buildings down, moving roads around, things of that nature. The plan was to come in front of the board several months ago before we even started the process with DEP, but with the ideas of the ordinance changes and not knowing what would be in there and the recommendation of planning, we kind of held off on coming in front of the board, but also wanted to get the permit process through DEP going. So this is just the way it ended up timing wise, was making this submission to get this in front of everyone. So this is the first 27 unit phase, which is still under the allowed 30 units. The ultimate build out of the development is planned for somewhere around 48 units. This will include the removal of the existing mobile home units in place of, to be replaced by the additional 21 age restricted units in the similar style. Obviously, this will be over the grandfathered 30 units, so we will need to come in front of the town council and the town planning board for a contract zone. We have received the review comments from staff and the traffic peer review, and will be addressed with the next submission. I know that the Traffic Solutions had concerns with some of the site distance, with some of the lower growth that was out there along 202 or County Road. So that'll be addressed on a note on the plan, and then also will be addressed obviously with part of the performance guarantee. And then the comments regarding the wetland fill limits and the concerns of waste or grass clippings, anything like that from going into the wetlands. If there are concerns with that, the property management, the property maintenance company that maintains the park cuts the grass and takes all their clippings and takes them off-site. There's not going to be any grass clipping dumping out there. And this is, you know, an age-restricted retirement community, and you wouldn't suspect that someone with the nice units that they're going to be putting in, that they're going to be wanting to dump waste into the wetlands that are surrounding the project. But obviously we'll coordinate with staff on that. And we'll also investigate the maneuverability of the fire trucks through the development. As indicated in the memo, we are looking for preliminary subdivision approval for the 27 units, and are here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Just to be clear, Eric, this is certainly grandfathered, and the portion where the discussion was, it would go to town council and wouldn't it go to zoning board? For anything other than the 27, for anything greater than the 27?
Yeah, so an expansion of any non-conforming use would have to go to the zoning board of appeals for a special exception permit. And staff is of the understanding that going beyond the 30 unit threshold would trigger that. But where this is at the 27 units,
We don't have to worry about that.
that wouldn't be an issue at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And of course, you're right. There's definitions being thrown around, but I think that's going to be at least talked again tomorrow at the council meeting.
Yeah, Wednesday. And
Oh, yeah, Wednesday. It's Monday.
I mean, those changes essentially move the standards that are in the existing trailer park and trailer camp ordinance into a different ordinance. And then actually codify that into the zoning ordinance. So
But this one isn't affected by that.
no,
wouldn't
not
be.
not until that point of expansion.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any comments from members of the board? Go ahead, Karen. You look like you're ready.
Well, I'm just reading the staff memo and it says they're asking to clear all the wet boundary south of Matthews Way and west of David Drive. The applicant should clarify the need for this and whether any buffer reference above can be maintained. Is that the sort of stuff that we're talking about now, or is this the stuff they're coming back with? Like, can I ask that question now? Can they give an explanation? Or are you saying when you come back, please provide? an
No, you can
explanation?
ask for it now.
Yeah, that was something that caught my eye because it looks like you're trying to clear some buffer in wetland.
Right.
There will be, what's not shown on here is obviously the grading associated with actually being able to construct these buildings. And pretty much the toe of slope that is coming off of the fill slope around these foundations will be pretty much the limit of the wetland impact. We're not proposing to provide any additional buffering for aesthetics reasons or anything like that. It's just pretty much whatever we need for construction. That's what we're considering for wetland impacts.
Oh, I've been scolded that I did not open this up for public comment, and you're absolutely right. Let me just take a time out here and open it up for public comment. Anybody wish to? Please come to the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Mary Anderson. I live at 397 County Road. I am an abutter of the abutter most affected by this, not the 27 units, but the advertised extra units that they have been showing people when they go to open houses. They have maps that show a lot more and they've had lots of maps that they have been circulating. I have a written statement. My parents are in their 80s and can't come. Okay. And I have been watching and following the progress of this, and this was the first invitation or anything. I went to the open house that they had, so I've seen the units. I believe there are 9 units already built and 8 mobile homes still there and people still living there. These units that they're building are not equivalent to mobile homes. They take up much more space, and I believe that the they've already built on an area where there were no mobile homes. Okay. To the best of my knowledge, the following will be as accurate as I can remember. And there's probably duplicate stuff in here. The trailers from Crystal Spring Trailer Park have been removed as a whole trailer or as pieces. The trailers are being replaced with manufactured homes on crawl space foundations and have attached two-car garages, which seems to mean that houses are being installed in a trailer park. They are being advertised for sale in the range of 400,000 to 500,000. I think there's 9. The upgrade from the old trailer to a new trailer would make the units less affordable for people, and the change from a trailer to a house with an attached two-car garage seems to go against the town's goal of preserving affordable housing. The road and surrounding area has been updated. The literature available to buyers are being advertised as a number in the high 40s, and he said 48, so that's that. The location of the new units do not fit in the location of the old units. I said that. He addressed water and sewer a little bit, but I'm not sure that what they are doing is adequate. I don't know. That's my my area of specialty. Okay.
20 more seconds.
Am I going to be able to go over that? I believe that their interpretation of being grandfathered with the 30 units is inaccurate when they're replacing a trailer with a large home with a two-car garage. They do not seem similar. It does not seem like it would be grandfathered to me. If they build the units that are not the ones on the 27 plan, they will greatly impact my parents because they will all be visible from two sides of my parents' house. So it's everything that they're doing, or I shouldn't say everything, but many things that they're doing seem to disagree with the what you call it, the plan, the what? Yes, the comprehensive plan. They do not seem to jibe with that as far as I can tell in multiple places. And I have gone over my time, so I'll just stop, but you have a copy of what I wrote so you can see the rest of it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Glenn Deering, 417 County Road. And my family also owns land that just barely butts up to them off in Deering Drive. Also have lived there all my life. Couple concerns. Why are we here tonight? Why weren't we here back in 18 when this started? They're replacing trailers. If they were replacing trailers, I wouldn't have a problem. But they've gone on the opposite side of the road in a field and put 5 on this side and 4 on this side to replace some trailers. Don't get me wrong. What they've done there is awesome. 110% better than it was. Okay. I just don't like what's happened here. Some of the stuff look at your small writing here, future home of wastewater. Well, that's where they put it now. They've got, out of the 9, they have 2 people living there. Where's the wastewater going? There. Where's the wastewater gonna go before they put this in the fall, if they put more people in here? I have concerns of the runoff. I know they're putting filters in and stuff and all this, and I know Angela will probably be right on it, but if that fails, it goes down, goes across 22 into the south branch of the Stroutwater River. We gotta be really, really careful, and it's only a half a mile away. Is it just, I can go on and on and on. There's a lot of things here that I can see that I don't believe it's been doing right. They're not doing things the proper way. I've heard 27. I've heard 37. I've heard tonight 48. Where are we gonna put them all? And I know the design of the septic tank, I know the design of the system will probably be the proper one and they'll put it in properly. But if it fails, look where it is. Right above wetlands. Where's it gonna go? Down through, across Crystal Springs, into the brook, into the Stroutwater River. There's a lot of things you gotta concern. There's been a lot of problems in the past up there. I know they're fixing them. I think it's great. 20 foot wide roads, awesome. It's awesome for the fire department. It's great. But I just disagree of what happened up there. I don't know whose fault it is, but why are they building? I agree with the building and taking a trailer out and building new ones. But I disagree with building stuff that was never there and the way they have that laid out. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Anybody else? All right, public comment closed. We'll get back to the board. Thank you, Roger. I guess I got a question, and it relates to one of the public comments. How are these grandfathered in if they're stick-built garages and things of that nature? Why is that okay to do something like that?
So I think the language in the ordinance relates to grandfathering of the use. So if the use was commenced prior to the enactment of the zoning ordinance, then that use could be considered legally grandfathered as non-conforming. If the adoption of an ordinance after the use is established, then makes that use non-conforming. So I had some discussions with Jay on this before he had left, and he sort of told me that since Crystal Springs was a trailer park before the zoning ordinance was established, and then the zoning ordinance made it non-conforming by having trailer parks as a special exception use in the RF zone out there. So that's kind of how we got to the.
Because it somehow became a trailer park. And then because it's non-conforming and it's still non-conforming by what they want to do, but it's okay because it's non-conforming.
Yeah, and the non-conforming provisions in the zoning ordinance talk about expansions of those uses. And in the discussions that we've had internally, I wouldn't consider this a expansion of that use, but that's certainly something for the board to consider. And I can certainly follow up with our town attorney on that to make sure we're crystal clear about it. But we've had many discussions on it in the past couple of months, so that's kind of where we're at.
And the attorney is saying that this is all permitted.
Yes, he has emailed me saying that the expansion of the park would require the applicant to go to the ZBA.
Okay. Go ahead, Roger.
Just for clarification with the applicant, in your narrative, and this goes to what one of the citizens there were mentioning, the 1 through 4 and the 6 through 9 units. Those were originally trailers on those sites, and there's a pad left there, and the new structures are on those existing pads.
So they're not necessarily on the existing pads because everything moved. The homes that are there, the oldest one is from the late 60s. And, you know, you see this in Maine with the trailer parks that it was a farm and they put a trailer out there, and it was Crystal Springs because there's a spring out there down by the brook, like he's saying. We bought it in 2018. And when I bought it, they had 3 years of bad water tests. There was 4-inch sewer lines going straight down to the brook. We've corrected all this stuff. The homes that are there are mobile homes. They're just really, really nice. And they're on a foundation. They're not on gravel. So, you know, talking about the trips into the property, yeah, we have open houses once a month. When we were trying to clean up the park, we had 7 homes with people living there. We had no idea who the people were. I went and met with the Scarborough Police and they said that was the biggest heroin hub in town. We were trying to evict one of the tenants. We couldn't evict her because she said that she was disabled, hadn't paid rent. So I sent my son, my lawyer said, go over to the Scarborough Police and get the police reports from that house for the last year. I said, okay. Sent my son over there. He calls me up and he said, Dad, it's going to be like $3,000 for printing costs. I go, for what? He said, the police reports. I said, no, not the whole park since it's been open. That one house for the last year. He said, the one house for the last year, over $3,000. There was 1,100 police calls to one residence in that park.
This isn't relative to.
It is when you talk about, she's talking about traffic.
Well, I don't, no, I don't think it is. What we're trying to do is one, make sure that this is conforming with our ordinances. And really what it was like in the past doesn't matter really. What is it going to look like now?
Well, this is what they were saying. They said before 2018, there wasn't much traffic. Now there's a lot of traffic. And I'm just giving you some history to support the fact that there's a lot less traffic than there was.
Well, I mean, traffic is another whole issue. I mean, once you're built out, you're going to have more traffic, right? You're going to have more lots. You're going to have more traffic than it has
Yeah,
today.
absolutely. It's going to be over 55 with maybe 48 homes. So, but I mean, the whole point is that in my opinion, that I can back up with facts, the traffic is a heck of a lot less now than what it was 4 or 5 years ago.
All right, well, we're gonna have to look at that as well when you come and you go and exceed the 30 that is allowed.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna trigger the zoning board approval on that.
Yeah.
So
So what we did, I mean, these are mobile homes, and I know that, you know, there's been some discussion with the town council because they're really, really nice. And the state manufacturing board has called me and said, are these modulars or are they, you know, mobile homes? They're HUD homes, they're mobile homes. So it's a mobile home park. These are very, very nice mobile homes. And I think it's, has anybody been in that park before? If you go in it now, mainly what we've done with the road improvements and the fire tank are all safety issues. I mean, there was basically 2 long dead end roads in there. There wasn't even a cul-de-sac or a turnaround. And they were both, one was about 700 feet and the other one was close to 1,500 feet dead end. So part of this is we're connecting those roads, so it just makes a complete loop. So the things that we've done are huge for safety for the residents there.
So,
Thank you.
Let me just follow up. So I'm kind of curious though on those units 1 to 4 and 6 to 9. I assume that you replaced the trailers with these new.
Correct.
Are you calling them what, modular homes or
Manufactured homes.
manufactured homes?
Yeah.
And were they supposed to come before the planning department on this, Eric?
So I really don't think so. This project predates me honestly, and I had relied on Jay for a lot of that information, but in speaking with Brian Longstaff today, they had gone through and gotten building permits, and I think the long-term kind of plan for this property necessitated a subdivision approval. So that's sort of the direction that we guided the applicant in.
Okay.
Yep.
And it seems to me, what the lady said, her comments, you know, this property owner, if he does everything that you purport to want to do, you have every right to replace the trailers with whatever you want to put in there if you buy the property. Are all the, just on curiosity, are all the trailers currently occupied that are in there?
Two.
Only two are?
Two. Well, the old ones and the new ones. So the new ones,
The existing trailers,
the new ones too, we have 7 families in the old ones.
okay.
But there'll be, by the end of August, there'll be 1 left.
Now,
The old-
these, I guess, can we talk about the type of structures right now?
You can ask questions.
I mean,
before you
these
try
are,
to
these
get-
are, all right, these are the structures, are these the kind you see coming down the highway where you see one half and the other half coming down,
Yes,
just like that, okay?
they have a metal,
Almost like a double wide trailer.
yeah,
way.
they have a metal frame underneath them.
Yeah.
And then when they arrive, we set them with a crane.
Yeah.
And instead of skirting and to get them lower to the ground, because it's an over 55 development, it just looks a lot nicer.
Yeah.
So we actually pour a foundation
Okay,
or a crawl space, frost wall, and that's the skirting. So when you drive in, they look like stick-built homes. They're very high quality.
That's what they're getting permits for, is they've been going and getting the permits for the skirting, and that's how you've already
You've
gone.
gotten permits for everything.
Okay,
every-
I don't understand the process of what you actually need a permit for, because, my understanding with zoning board is absolutely, it's a grandfather use, and you have every right to actually situate them kind of as you please to an extent, and use it that way, up to that 27 units. So I heard that the residents saying, you put them in different places, they're mobile homes, they can put them kind of where they choose, and you actually need permits for those locations.
Yeah, we've been in to meet with the town at least 5 times, and we went over all this and they went over all the ordinances and they said they're mobile homes. And you have a license for 30 mobile homes. So as long as you're not impeding on the wetlands or doing anything you shouldn't do, you can put 30 homes in there. And, so what happened was we had a submission. So what we just worked with the planning department was to, and this was before Eric was involved, we were dealing with Jay Chase and Brian Longstaff, is that they said, okay, we've had many people come to the planning board trying to expand the park, the existing use, the way it was, and it has been turned down. I think it was brought before the planning board 5 or 6 times. And so I said, instead of us going to the planning board for the full size project, the 48 units, let's do phase 1 so they can actually see what we're trying to do. And this is the approach that they took. They liked that approach. And, you went from I just sold one of the trailers in there, the old ones, for $500. So you got rid of a $500 trailer and now you have a $419,000 home there. So this is the difference that is going on that property. It's literally night and day. He said 110%, but I might go a little bit higher than that, the improvement. So we haven't tried to hide anything, we worked with planning. We did a submission. The plan was we were going to submit to you folks last fall. And then Brian and Jay reached out to us and they said, listen, we're working through the ordinance. We're talking with a lawyer. And literally the day that Jay submitted, he called and said, you might want to think about pulling that back because everything's in the works to change. And what you guys are proposing and you want to go to the zoning board of appeals, you might not have to go to the zoning board of appeals. So we tried to submit, I don't know when that was, October or November last year, and we pulled it back. So now we're here again because, we were asked to come in by Eric, so.
Anybody else?
I have a question, mostly related to your wastewater. It's clear on the plans that you have identified an area for, what are you calling it, pod 1 and 2 for your wastewater treatment? And that's connected through a series of pipes and manholes and septic tanks. But I'm curious if that system as shown on these plans, is that sufficient for the the 27 units that you're talking about? Excuse me, or does that represent a full 48 unit build out?
So we have two things going on. There was 11 systems there. Some of them were literally just straight pipes into the woods. The system had failed. They went on the backside of the septic tank. They ripped out baffles. They were just draining the sewage into the woods. This is what we were dealing with when we bought the place. So there was one new septic field put in up on the hill, and I believe that takes 20 homes. But it was put in, I believe, in 1997. You know, so it's old, it's still functioning. We had it checked out. It's interesting on that property because up on the hill where the septic is literally like sugar sand. It's perfect for a septic system. You go down over the hill and it's marine clay. So we have a couple of different things going on. That's why the springs are there, because the water's coming up as it's flowing through the sand and then it hits the marine clay. So we have an existing system there that works very well for, I believe, 20 homes. What we're proposing is the new system, and I forget what it's called. I call it a digester, but you put in that system and you put in it's a microbial. It introduces oxygen into it, and it can double the size of the system. Is that on the plan, what she's reading? So when we put a system in for 24 units, we put in that digester and it automatically will go to the 48.
Okay, so you won't need, so that my question was related to whether or not you would need another system of the same size if you come back for the additional unit.
No, we would just have to
Okay.
put in that one component.
Okay. And then those are, well, and I guess actually prior question, which you essentially already answered, which is that all of these units would be connected and treated sort of in common versus having each individual septic system of their own or anything
Correct.
like that. Yeah, so
Correct.
it'll be treated like as a group.
Yeah.
Are you proposing any landscaping? I didn't really see any.
We've been doing landscaping around the fronts of the houses, and some of the residents have been coming in and putting some flowers around the backs. So we have an area where we're putting a gazebo in a cul-de-sac area, and that will be heavily landscaped around that. But we've kept the landscaping very minimal around the houses. We did install 8 maple trees on the right-hand side as you come in on the property. And we'll be, putting some more larger trees in different places as we move through the project and
Okay.
new plans.
Yeah, that would be something that I think would be helpful to see, to just sort of help the board and, any other residents just kind of better picture what this would look like at full build out. And also just, it's always a nice amenity for, any sort of neighborhood, big or small. And in particular, if you have done recent plantings, it would be great to be able to show those too, so that we can see where they are. And then I guess my last question has to do with some of the wetlands. And, just sort of a similar comment to one I had on a prior project, but, for any of these areas, there's a couple of the proposed units that you're showing. So units 13, 14, and 15, for example, that, will back right up to a wetland area. As well as some kind of along the northerly property line. I continue to think that it's a good idea in areas like this where you through your permits and your site work and all of that, you are required to adhere to pretty strict wetland regulations. And so, but the owner of that house 5 years from now may not know that. And so I think it's helpful to sort of think about what that boundary line might look like when you're all said and done with construction. And maybe there is some sort of visual cue or reminder that, hey, this beyond this line, this is something different. This isn't, this is an area that needs to be protected. And you're sort of at an advantage here because I'm guessing that this is going to be something that's sort of your property maintenance would be handled overall. Is that right? Yeah, so, you'll have the same staff that you're working with versus individual homeowners that are mowing their backyards. But, it's always helpful, whether it's your property maintenance company or you change companies or the property sells or whatever that looks like, to just have some sort of visual protection or reminder that, that you are up against some sensitive, habitat and area. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jen. Chad?
Are there any other proposed amenities or, I guess, walking paths, sidewalks?
Yeah, so we have, as people have been moving in, so we have 2 people living in the new homes. There's 4 under contract right now. So one is closing tomorrow, one is closing in a couple of weeks. So we've been listening to people, what they wanted. The gazebo was one of the things, and people had talked about, a rec area, but the houses, once again, when you go inside them, I designed the inside of these, they're all open concept. And you don't see that in a mobile home. So when we get these, when we set them, we have to build a false wall, put it in there because we set it with the crane, and then we take that out. So part of this was having each home being as almost like a gathering place for people. So they're not small rooms. So we have had some people talk about that. The first thing was to implement the gazebo in the open space. And then we also have a maintenance building that could be converted into a space for residents. There is a coffee room proposed in there because we have a mail room that's attached to that. And there's a little coffee area where people can get their mail, go in and have coffee.
Thank you.
You all set, Chad? Yes. I guess they're asking for preliminary approval, correct? What exactly, tell me, what would we be approving if we move forward tonight?
So the preliminary process is basically just confirming the existing zoning boundaries, ownership of the property, cross-section of any proposed roadways, utilities, sanitary sewers that might be proposed. Just kind of the general, I guess it's a little bit more detailed than a sketch plan, but it would essentially
Give them a roadmap to come back to us with a final that would entail landscaping. There appears to be some needs for lighting at intersections. So we'd probably want to see, what you're going to do with the lighting. Anything else I'm missing? I'm just trying to give the applicant some sort of direction for, if we give you the nod to say, all right, conceptually, we're there with you. We want to work with you, but you need to resubmit and you need to make sure that it's going to meet all the other elements of a site plan. Lighting, vehicular traffic. I don't know what is the subject of a sidewalk. What do we deal with that? Is that a required aspect of this? It appears to me that there might be a nice, have some sort of conductivity between the units. What are your plans?
So a lot of people, have asked about walking paths, and that was one of the plans. Once again, as people moved in and we talked to them, sort of building out what they wanted, we got a lot of feedback about places that had pools that they lived in and nobody ever used it. So, our plans right now, hopefully, it's been gas break through the process because everybody's learning and things are changing so quickly. I mean, what I would like to see is, and we'll put together the full plan for the 48 and present it to you and schedule to come in and work with you through that, and then add anything or delete anything that you don't want to have on that. I mean, all the home footprints are essentially the same except for 3. We made them smaller because when we had proposed this, there was too much impact to the wetlands. We scaled those houses back quite a bit. Haven't had any residents ask for sidewalks because they're just sort of, the homes are very close together by design, because then that leaves all the other open space, the meadow, the walking paths that we have through the meadow. People love it. The way that it's set up. And I think when you folks see the final plan, or if you take a ride through there, I hope you like it. I mean, the
Are
comments
these
that
all
I've,
1-bedroom units?
no, they're 2-bedroom.
So there could be kids there, though.
No, it's, you're not allowed to
Oh,
have
that's right. It is
Yeah.
8. Well, what's the age?
55.
I could have a kid at 55 living with me.
Um,
Theoretically, you could.
the 3 smaller homes are 1-bedroom,
Okay.
1-bedroom, one car
If you have
garage.
2 bedrooms and you could be a single parent that's 55 and you have a 16-year-old child.
I had one of the residences living there. She was with her husband and said, if he dies and I want to get a 35-year-old boyfriend, can he live here? And I said, yeah, I don't see why not if you're over 55. I mean,
Well, I'm just, that's just something, I don't know, usually in site plans, when you have this kind of density, sidewalks are, something that we look at. And I don't know if that's something I'm willing to just forget about.
mhm.
So I would,
Think about the state manufactured homes. They don't have sidewalks.
Yeah.
But Florida, they don't have sidewalks.
Oh, the people that are there and all the people moving in all have dogs. And when I was there today, I was leaving and then one of the gentlemen was there and he was walking his dog back and forth across the front lawns. And there's barely any traffic there. So it's, other than the construction traffic, but I haven't had anyone say anything about sidewalks. This is the first time I've heard it. I mean, we can certainly look at it and see if it's something we should do. But
I mean, are there trailer parks with sidewalks and things like that? Because again, my only reference, I think, is the one that you're talking about. Just on the
Well, and
forum line.
I guess I would just say you're comparing a little bit of apples to oranges.
This is a
Because
mobile
what
home.
you're referring to actually is wider roadways. This is a 20-foot wide road, which is very different than what Roger just referenced. So I guess I would just ask the board to I'm not advocating one way or the other. I just, again, to Rick's point, it's just something that you would consider probably with any site plan. It'd just be a conversation, and where you guys land on that is really up to you.
yeah, well,
When I sold 55 plus units way back in the day, no one over the age of 55 could live in those units. Is that not how it is anymore? Like, could someone with 55 with a minor be living there? I thought it was just.
so we have rules and I mean, life happens. So we've had people come in that they have a disabled son that's 38 and has lived with them, so you have situations like that. Or if someone becomes sick, can they have a son or a daughter, a relative, or someone that's a caregiver move in with them? And that's just a case by case basis.
I'm thinking more like kids, students, school buses, impact that.
It-
I don't think that.
There, again, referring back to, which I know is not the same thing, but where Roger opened that window about other ones in town. I know that you can have those under the age limit, but probably, again, it's probably dictated by the rules of the establishment, which
Yes.
they could set whatever rule, I guess you probably wanted.
I think the rules were in the submission.
But not for the
Yeah.
state or for the town. Like, I don't think the town would want to get in the middle of setting those kind of rules.
right.
But that's,
I'm not
again,
proposing.
if you guys want to set a condition, then that's completely your
One
decision.
of the things that I always find attractive for, exercise is to walk.
Mhm.
And, retirement community and now no sidewalks just doesn't make sense to me.
People walking those all the time.
Well, whatever, Roger. I prefer to walk on a sidewalk instead of middle down the street, okay?
Yeah,
I think is hard is we can't do independent site visits. We can't go out there. We can't go look at it. It might be helpful for us. Just as a board, we can, but like when I think, some residents like, why haven't you driven through it? We're not allowed to go out and look at this stuff. Maybe some pictures of what the current condition might end some of these conversations.
yeah, I have some on my phone.
No, I'm sorry. We've closed public comment right now.
And the board used to do site visits for quite a few projects. And if this is one the board is wanting to do, we can definitely do that.
Well, let me throw it out there. No? Okay, got one no.
Sure.
Just depends on what time of day you go drive.
So
out.
just
Is there
the-
sidewalks that I can walk out to it?
The walking paths we have proposed are 3,100 feet around the property, the full length, and only about a third of that is on the roadway. The rest of it is through the fields and through the woods.
All right, I didn't see those on the,
You know, Rick, it might be a good idea to consider a sidewalk because I think we're gonna be dealing with this project for a while. Potentially.
Yeah, there's gonna be,
well, that's,
know-
that's why I'm kind of just playing in here, but playing a little devil's advocate, because this isn't the last time we're gonna see this or an expansion of this. And it's, you know, as I always say, it's always better to do things from the ground up instead of,
and it sounds like, you know, as these trailer parks are converted or upgraded or sold, that they might be converted into something like this. It's already happened once in town. This is the second time. So it, you know, with the new ordinance being written and adopted, you know, it's probably be good for everybody to get their eyes on what it did look like and what it looks like now and anything that should be added or deleted to these type of projects.
well, I'm thinking a site visit, but more importantly, I'm trying to get what we're here tonight for is a preliminary approval to continue. And I just want to check in with staff here to see if where you're at and are the things that you would like us to investigate a little bit more before we just say, go ahead and begin the process.
I mean, I'm certainly comfortable with the discussion that's gone on tonight. You know, the board certainly went over some of the septic systems and the wastewater and all that kind of stuff. And I'm actually looking through the subdivision ordinance now. I mean, I think the biggest item for me now, just kind of going off the discussion in the last few minutes, is whether the board wants to do a site walk. And it sort of sounds like folks think that might be a good idea, but you know, staff is certainly happy to schedule that accordingly. Whether the board wants to wait to give preliminary approval until a time when a site walk can occur, or if it would rather try and make a decision on a preliminary approval tonight and then do a site walk. That's
I'm not suggesting a preliminary approval tonight. Preliminary subdivision, I guess, is where I'm having a hard. Do we have enough information that we could say, okay, move forward? I don't know. I don't feel like I have a landscaping plan or.
So the landscaping plan is part of the final subdivision review. Let's see.
So by granting them a preliminary approval, what is that going to allow them to do?
Well, basically to just come back with a final plan showing landscaping. If there's any more details that need to be shown on final utilities or septic, water, anything like that. I mean, the completeness requirements for the final plan say everything for the preliminary plan and it talks about, you know, lines of streets. The board needs sufficient location to determine the length of every street. So basically the profiles and the
Yeah.
curves.
And snow storage areas.
Yep.
and-
I think the struggle with this is that obviously this was the path that made the most sense to go down is subdivision, but it's not our typical subdivision, right? So typically with a preliminary subdivision plan, what the board would be looking at is the right of way for the roadway. We'd be looking at how many lots, just like we looked at the last subdivision. We're looking at how the lots lay out, how the road lays out, how that road right of way lays out. We talk about sidewalks, things like that, but where this is one lot.
Yeah, I guess that's
I
why
think
I'm
that's where we're
having a
struggling,
hard-
right? We're
yeah.
struggling with that a little bit and
Yeah,
there was comments about stormwater, which has not been discussed tonight. I don't know if there was any additional information in that Woodard and Curran.
All our
provide.
stormwater calculations have been submitted to the
Right, if Woodard and
DEP.
Curran's comments
And
have been
approved,
discussed with the
right?
board, if you guys have feeling comfortable with things. I guess I haven't heard anything other than just,
Okay,
I'm
putting my head
trying
on
to
that this
figure
is already this is a subdivision. And I guess that helps me knowing that, A, you're gonna come back, but at the same time, we can go ahead and grant preliminary approval, given the concept that you've given us today. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. Then I guess we just do a show of nods. This isn't a formal vote, right? It's just giving an approval.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone, again, I haven't done too many subdivisions since I've come to Scarborough.
Yeah, I
but-
don't like subdivisions.
Yeah, I've looked through some old minutes and I have seen votes, I mean, for the the Haggis subdivision we just did. We did give them a formal vote and I gave them something in writing.
Okay.
So
What would you like us to do? A formal vote?
I would recommend a formal vote just so we could put it in the minutes. give them
Okay.
something written, but it's
All
certainly
right.
the board's decision.
Unless there's anybody else, I'm proposing we go ahead and take this to a vote. Doreen, you want to do a roll call? Oh, well, yeah, I just thought we were approving.
I'll second your motion.
All right, I'll motion, since I don't have one in front of me, that we accept the information we have tonight and issue a preliminary approval, provided that the applicant understands there's requirements from the staff and the engineering peer review comments that need to be looked at and brought back in your final submission. That's my motion, I guess. Does that work? Okay, we have a second. Now let's get a vote.
Chad Reed,
Yes.
Rick Manking,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Karen Shu. Yes. And Jennifer Ladd.
Yes.
There you have it. We'll see you again, and I hope we can do this a little bit. I'll have a better understanding now, and I think I learned something tonight.
and for the board's benefit, sorry, Eric.
I was just gonna ask about the site walk. but you
I was
can-
gonna say, with the site walk, just for the, I guess, for the public can attend.
Can attend.
It is publicly noticed, I guess, just.
Well, in that situation, I think I would be in favor of a site walk, just so that we're not doing anything under the stone. We're totally transparent here, and it'd be helpful for me to learn a little bit.
Could everybody, like the five of you who are here, make I don't know what, I guess I've never done a site walk since I've come to Scarborough, but do we usually do it at 5 o'clock?
I think you
Right
you
before
do
the meeting?
a doodle poll, like kind of like we did for
Yeah.
workshops, you could send
Okay.
out an
Yeah.
email
All
and
right.
figure out
Sure.
what works best.
But usually the planner brings pizza or something if it's done in the evening time.
We actually have a lobster bait, so coming up, so.
If you're considering a sidewalk at 5 o'clock or on 22.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. They might not want to do that.
We'll send out a poll to get people's availability.
So
and we'll-
just to clarify, you want us to submit the full plan with the 48 units on it so that you can see everything, or do you want us?
I don't want to see the 48. I only
No,
want to see
it's-
what just what you can do right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll deal with whatever happens later on down the road.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
Wooden turn comments?
Yeah, I don't,
I might have.
go ahead.
Nope.
Let me make sure. Oh, yeah, you did have, no, it was the traffic engineer. You may
Yeah.
not have,
I
I'm
don't-
sorry, I misspoke
I don't think
myself.
we sent out the preliminary subdivision for Woodard and Curran's review, but the final application will definitely be sent to them, so.
Yeah, you sent out the traffic.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, you all set with that?
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, we have number 10 here is staff report. Any,
Do you have anything or? I didn't know, if we should mention that, we have.
do you hire somebody?
We have gone through, rounds of interviews for a planning director and one has been offered, and accepted, but I don't know if it's officially out there, name and start date, so. But I'm saying it's coming soon,
Oh, good.
that we will have a planning director also at the planning board meetings. So that's exciting, because it's a little, touch and go these days to try to make sure, to find good applicants for a lot of positions or to fill positions right now. And so I think we were very fortunate to have a good pool.
Let me just ask, is it a Mainer?
There are no planners in Maine
And-
besides Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, therefore I am default the best planner.
There you go. There we go.
And I'm-
That's where I was going with that.
And kind of how Jay sort of had me come to the planning board meeting before I started. I'm gonna see if I can get this person to come to maybe one of the August meetings before they start. But I will certainly keep you guys updated on that.
Super.
And otherwise, I know I've said it before, and Rick Dupere had mentioned he was interested, so I followed up with him, but there is a MMA planning board workshop, or it's planning board and Board of Appeals workshop, August 25th in South Portland, from 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. So if anybody's interested, just let myself or Doreen know, and we can sign you up and get you all squared away if you are interested. But other than that, I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Any administrative amendment report?
Yes, the summer's sort of been the summer of administrative amendments. I think I've updated the board on most of them thus far. We had Blast from the Past Diner come in asking for a shed expansion to put out in their parking lot. We've had several come in, including Texas Roadhouse for accessory storage containers. But other than that, I think we've sort of processed most of them at this point, and we'll certainly keep you guys up to date as we get more.
Thank you. How about the minor development review on Washington?
Yes, so Washington 23 has submitted a site plan to basically relocate some parking spaces at their existing business to better serve that particular establishment. The spaces right now are located in a not a very convenient location for employees and customers to visit the location. So they're relocating from existing impervious area to essentially a pathway out behind the building that they're going to expand. So it would be about 9,750 additional square feet of impervious area, but only result in 2 net increase in parking spaces. So I think it'd go from something like 74 to 76 spaces. And staff is reviewing that, and we will again keep you guys in the loop. Well, the applicant is Washington 23 LLC. I don't know the name of the actual tenant, but it's 23 Washington Ave out in the industrial park.
All right, correspondence? Any? All right, planning board comments. Anybody want to make a comment? Well, everybody wants to get out of here. All right, seeing none. Roger, usually we have an adjournment at this point.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Any second? Do we have to really vote? Can we just say goodbye? Yeah. I usually just say goodbye. So goodbye.
Goodbye.